want every side to come together to attempt to take down the 100 side.
Man, they gotta
We want
understand,
all the
right?
smoke.
We go off the content.
Three, two, one. Hey there, welcome back to the channel where we keep it real. No capping. I'm your host, bringing you nothing but straight fire and authenticity. Today, we're diving into 12 rooms that I got to promote. The 100 ENT showroom, hosted by Big Wack100. The Beehive room. Love and R&B room, hosted by the queen of the 100 side, R&B. No room for the weak. No mercy room. Spin the block room. 100 ENT jailbreak squad room. 100 ENT solve room. Petty Betty and Toxic Tanya room. Dangerous Minds room, hosted by Beast. Good Burger, hosted by Pitbull. Sleepless in LA, and many more. If you want to get closer or you want to be a part of the show, go to Clubhouse, follow one of these rooms, or you look for a room titled with Wack100. These particular videos all made possible by the one and only Wack100. Get ready to vibe with me as we explore the hardest topics that need some real recognition in the streets. Let's jump right into it and show some love to this channel by hitting the like and or subscribe button. So, without further ado, hold it down. One mic on Wack.
Back and read this shit. That should be up somewhere in one of our replays. Then y'all know what reading. And this is what keeps you from looking stupid. I keep telling y'all make me look bigger than what I am because y'all just dumb. Like, you come at me, hey, and then you'll say this, and I'll simply just go pull the paperwork up, and I'll read the line, and I'll sit there, and I'll wait for your response. So all you gotta
I had to clear that one
is
up.
educate yourself. Yeah, I wasn't thinking nothing of it. Because when I heard it, I knew it was Molly Mall.
Yeah, I know.
I wasn't thinking nothing of this shit. They've already identified witness 1, witness 2, and all the motherfuckers who they referring to in the previous paperwork. But
See, the problem is that he
it's
made
gonna
that
be
statement
listen.
about you too. So somebody that's gonna run with that bullshit is gonna make that connection and say, "Oh, you see that?" But
We all
niggas don't
know
read.
Wack
So
ain't no weak.
But see, here goes the thing about the statement. I've been wearing them out with that, right? I said it's obvious this dude didn't consult his attorney because if you listen to him on the turn in, everything he said he was going to jail for has nothing to do with what he was going to jail for. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he really knew. Well, he knew he had the murder shit going on, and from what Eddie Boy Ted said yesterday when him and 600 had a conversation, he told Eddie Boy he knew he had the tax problem thing going on. He knew that. He had been telling people he had to go do about 4 years. He been telling people that on the streets. So he knew those things was going on because A, they served the DNA test. So he knew that was there and the other shit was there. I don't think he knew the Dale shit was there, the extortion, because the nigga was still going to pick up extortion money in March 14th.
I agree.
I don't think he knew that one. He knew it was the probability of the murder. Because like I said in the paperwork, it say this nigga was still extorting the dude till 3-4 days before they picked him up. So I don't think he that much crazy to know. You know what I'm saying?
He's got to know Rico coming the minute he get that alert from the Facebook and Instagram for the Jersey shit.
No, listen, listen, bro. I believe that nigga thought, I'm gonna be real, I think he thought one agency was gonna protect him from the other. I'm telling you, bro. And if you look at it, the murder, he didn't hear nothing about the murder until 2 years after the murder. Remember it said on the 2nd anniversary of his death, that's when they went and visit the house and talked to the wife.
And that's when he freaks out.
So when you got a street dude He like, it been 2 years. We got the camera footage. Well, so he thought. What I found out from Molly Mall was they did all that shit for nothing. Cause none of his cameras work. Only thing they work for is monitor inside the house. So all that witness shit they got, them ordering DVRs and the repair people and all that, he brought that on himself for nothing. The cameras didn't even record nothing. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's
So,
type shit.
but what
that's
he
crazy.
didn't know is he thought he had control of the ring. Team up. Remember in there, KF or MF or RF,
Yeah,
whoever
KF.
booked the Airbnb in the paperwork, he had them contact the owner about the ring. And I'm pretty sure they might have told him that they exposed of it, but obviously didn't.
Yeah,
That
so
ring,
the KF dude that booked the room booked it under his aunt's Airbnb account. So the aunt cooperated and already gave the information up. That
yeah.
KF was asking for the ring camera and all that stuff through the aunt's account. So she turned it over to the FBI already.
Also, she had already turned it over.
She already turned all over.
Oh. Did
All the
KF
messages.
tell him that or didn't tell him that? I
Which
don't
part?
remember. Remember, because I remember it's in there that he told him to.
So KF talked to the detective. She talked to the Nevada detective. Did not talk to the FBI though.
So did
So
KF ever tell Big U that they got rid of the ring footage?
I don't see any in the complaint about that.
Yeah, he probably was. That was a wild card. He was hoping that happened. So
Yeah.
that goddamn ring, that ring gave them a time frame.
It also puts you as a last known person with the deceased victim
That
alive.
gives you a time frame because the time he turned his phone off at the studio
Hmm.
versus the time it took him to get to where the ring picked him up. It gave him an exact. And then they was able to map it from ring camera to drop spot of the body.
Yep.
And then able to map it from drop spot of the body back to studio where he turned the phone back on.
And you have a witness right there, and you pick up
You got the
they
security guard.
and you
Remember?
yeah.
You
But
got
you
the security guard who said he was drenched in sweat and he told him he just came back from the gym.
he also cut his phone back on and called Vay at the studio before he
Plus
even
you
got
got
there.
that. Because
You
I
got
think
that
I
too.
hit you up. When
Mhm.
I ran it in my head, I said that's about 50 minutes. You said nigga it was 48. I was 2
48.
minutes off.
Hmm.
All right, yeah, let's keep it rolling.
Let's go, y'all.
Y'all see Bro Rogan down there, put him up. Just keep it rolling.
Let's back up.
Who you say?
Huh?
Salute to Joe Rogan.
I just simply.
All right, let's keep it rolling.
On multiple intercepted calls, Big U talked about beating up or at least breaking a witness's jaw. And while Big U may claim other reasons for feuding with that witness, this court should protect that witness. After fleeing with his phones in the hours before the scheduled arrest in this case, in an attempt to intimidate and dissuade anyone from cooperating with law enforcement or otherwise reporting information about Big U posted publicly on Instagram, naming his co-defendants and known opponents, instructing the public not to associate with them and claiming that if they did, they were not black, quote unquote. In an attempt to poison the jury pool, Big U posted on Instagram claiming racial profiling, ignoring that almost every single one of his victims, from Rayshawn Williams, rest in peace, to many of his extortion, robbery, fraud victims, and the at-risk youths he was supposed to help are black. Oh, the feds throwing some shade. And blaming his co-defendants and opponents for the charges filed against him in the federal complaint. Once again, go back to that Instagram video when he turned himself in. Remember, we told you guys on the floor, he called the obstruction of justice charge for that because they deemed that he was intimidating witnesses, right? And also trying to poison the jury pool. That's a charge. So what is the legal standard for all of this? In order for him to be detained properly for pretrial, a defendant must be detained pending trial where, quote unquote, no condition or combination of conditions will reasonably assure the appearance of the person as required and the safety of any other person and the community. Detention is thus appropriate for a defendant who is either a danger to the community or at risk of non-appearance. Either or. They can argue both sides. Danger to the community, danger to witnesses, danger to people, or risk of flight, risk of non-appearance. Right? They didn't go into the Bail Reform Act, not a big deal. Defendant should also remain detained because he is a risk of non-appearance and a danger to the community. The 43, count them, not 1, not 2, not 20, not 30, not 40, but 43 federal charges against Big U, the damning evidence against him, his dangerous history and characteristics, and the risk to numerous specific individuals and the community at large if he were to be released, all support his detention pending trial. What are some of the nature and circumstances of his offenses? The nature and circumstances of his offenses unequivocally weigh in favor of detention. Unequivocally, without equal weigh in favor of the defendant. They're saying they can't even argue against it. Don't even worry about it. There is no crime more serious. There is no crime more serious or permanent than the murder that Big U committed. And still, Big U did not stop there. They are not alleging that in that paperwork. I'm reading it again. There is no crime more serious or permanent than the murder that Big U committed. And still, Big U did not stop there. Courts considering cases like this have unanimously ruled in favor of detention. They go into a couple of different cases where they have, right? Let's see, let me go through this real quick. So you have one case, United States versus Tortilla, where it says he was detained on danger, reversing the district court's release order, noting the defendant's total commitment to a life of crime, quoting defendant's threats to kill and finding his association with organized crime and devotion to the mafia, a highly relevant consideration to detention. So the court detained the defendant, who made the mafia his highest priority in life and pledged fealty to its needs, whatever the circumstances. Defendant here, like in Tortilla, is virtually a paradigm of the criminal who within the contemplation of the Bail Reform Act might plausibly be subjected to pre-trial. Similarly, the judge released the defendant charged of RICO crimes, conspiracy to commit attempted murder, of enterprise engaged in other acts of violence. The district court reversed, noting that the defendant is charged with violent and serious crimes. So this whole section is basically going into case law on how anybody with a RICO that has had the similar charges or witness tampering, wire fraud, extortion have not gotten any bail, right? It says moreover, as currently charged, defendant faces a statutory maximum of well over 600 years. Even discounting defendant's criminal history due to his age as currently charged, defendant faces a likely guideline range in prison based on a total offense level of 43 for count 1 alone.
What the hell is count 1?
Count 1 is the RICO count.
Oh shit. Okay.
So they saying his offense level is 43. What's his category though? Did he tell us his category? Give me 1 second.
That'll at least give you a low start. Lavish probably got that damn chart.
Yeah.
He
Usually
got
Lav
to be a category 2 or 3, at least 3 with them priors. And you said offense level 43?
Yeah.
Yeah, he might be starting off at 360 months.
God damn.
Yeah.
It says even discounting his criminal history.
I was saying they're not even adding that.
Not even adding that.
Level 43 in the case of most serious federal crime with a potential sentence of life in prison. These guidelines assign offense levels between 1 and 43, with higher levels represent more severe crimes. First degree murder, for example, has a base offense level of 43. God damn, is that what the highest offense levels are 40 through 43.
So I think we gotta walk back to not charging him with that murder. I think they're charging him with the
Nah, they
murder under
not.
the
It
RICO.
says are reserved for the most serious federal crimes like first degree murder, but they ain't. I don't. The murder wasn't in the RICO. It wasn't in the indictment.
Let me ask the lawyer that. I could swear they're charging him with it under the RICO though.
For a level 43 offense, the sentencing guidelines suggest a life sentence, according to the Neiman law offices. To give you context, the base offense level for first degree murder is 43. But his murder is not in the indictment, bro. Shit. 43 is the highest you can
That's
go.
what I'm saying. They're saying you get it for
Well,
murder.
they using it just for a reference, not just murder. That's a reference. That's like being equivalent to first degree. But whatever his case is, it could put him down in a category 43, which is equivalent to
To a
first degree
murder.
murder. Yep. And that should start off with life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I couldn't remember how far it go down, but some of them start at 360 months, but some of them start at life. It's all bad.
Wow, that shit got real. It's been real, but damn. Somebody said
He
20
ain't
years in
getting
the
out.
beginning. Yeah.
They ain't gonna never let that nigga out.
Damn.
Yeah, that just fucked me up. That's 600 years?
Where you getting 600 years from?
Let me read this again.
Nigga, that's 7,200 months. That's some crazy shit.
That's not the case, but we good. It's right above it.
Huh?
It was United States versus Arena.
They didn't suggest 600 years for him.
That's what I'm reading. It says, moreover, as currently charged, Big U faces a statutory maximum of well over 600 years. Even discounting defendant's criminal history due to his age, as currently charged, defendant faces a likely guidelines range of life in prison based on a total offense level 43 for count 1 alone.
And count 1 is the RICO.
Count 1 is a RICO.
600 years? God damn.
Even if it was 600 months, that's 50 years.
Yes, I'm thinking it should not
Could be a typo.
months.
600 years sound crazy.
Yeah, I'm reading page 12, paragraph 1. That's what it say. Maybe
Yo,
they meant
that's
60.
crazy.
Shit say 600. Unless I'm tripping.
I'm
You
telling you, they make
years
them play with
ago?
that 60s gang name with that 600, bro.
Or they
They
probably
probably
gave him 600 because 600 the one that gave them the information. Or gang.
600 gave him what information?
I
what
don't know. I'm
information
just
you
talking
talking about,
shit.
nigga? Oh, okay.
Who was that, bro? 600 ain't
No,
give him
I
no
know.
information, bro.
I be shooting shots at 600. He cool. I don't know what he did. He funny though. Big old nigga. I ran into that nigga at the USC game. That nigga big as shit.
Let's keep it going.
Fill up and yellow. Huh?
We got some more on there. No, that was it.
Now we got
Uh,
more. We got
Another
like
big
15 more
yellow no
minutes.
gang.
So is it
Hold on a second.
600 years or is it 600 months? I just wanted
It says years,
600
but
years is crazy. I'm reading this shit now.
to. All right.
it could be a typo though. But we're on page 12. So weight of the evidence, right? So what
600
evidence do they have
years.
against them, right? How heavy is it? How much does it weigh? In legal terms, what they're talking about, right? How heavy is it? The evidence that Big U committed the charged offenses is overwhelming and cannot be ignored in assessing his risk of danger and non-appearance in his case.
What?
Defendant was captured, audio recordings and intercepted wire calls discussing various violent and other crimes for months and even years. So Big U was captured on audio recordings and intercepted wire calls discussing various violent and other crimes for months and even years. Many of his extortions were themselves captured in recordings. The financial records and tax documents do not lie either. They show exactly how Big U committed all of his fraud. And the recordings show why.
Oh, so that 600 might be real. They really mean 600 years.
All the evidence in this case conclusively shows Big U's personal involvement in murder. All the evidence in this case conclusively shows Big U's personal involvement in murder, extortion, robbery, fraud, human trafficking, and tax crimes. Defendant's entire purpose was based on financial gain, respect, fear, and intimidation. Accordingly, the weight of the evidence favors defendant's continued detention. Here's his history. This court should not fall victim to any argument about Big U's lack of convictions since his release from state custody in the early 2000s. Absence of convictions is not the same as absence of crimes. So you can kind of get a sense of what Big U's side is arguing by their response that the feds are giving you. So this court should not fall victim to any argument about Big U's lack of convictions since his release from state custody in the early 2000s. Absence of convictions is not the same as absence of crimes. Defendant's history and characteristics plainly favor detention. Big U's involvement in multiple violent offenses while holding himself out to be a gang interventionalist, working with law enforcement, renders him particularly dangerous to the community. They then go into a couple of case laws about Hobbs Act and detentions. Big U's depraved and duplicitous scheme to intimidate and defraud the very community that he benefited from, claiming to help cast his criminal history in an even more troubling light. Indeed, Big U's history of charges of murder and other gang-related activities compared with the murder and other violent crimes he is now charged with. So let's back up. Defendant's depraved and duplicitous scheme to intimidate and defraud the very community that he benefited from, claiming to help cast his criminal history in an even more troubling light. Indeed, Big U's history of charges for murder and other gang-related activities compared with the murder and other violent crimes he is now charged with committing alongside gang members suggests that Big U did not change his criminal behavior in any way. He just got better at hiding it. More recent arrests for child abuse and being a felon in possession of a firearm also become more ominous in light of the evidence in this case. What are they talking about? Some child abuse arrests?
Y'all don't listen to me, do you?
When he beat his son, Wack helped him when he beat his son back.
Build a nigga out.
There you go.
I keep they say Wack line until the shit hit. There you go.
There you go. That's when you say he beat his son half to death, right?
Beat his son. That's like 04.
Mm-hmm. So it's in here. And being a felon in possession of a firearm. So he got arrested for being a felon in possession? When? Also become more ominous in light of the evidence in this case. The court should pause in considering whether the defendant is able or willing to conduct himself without putting others in danger. That Big U so clearly fled from law enforcement the night before his arrest. We talked about this. Remember, he did not turn his phones in. He was supposed to turn his phones in. He did not do that. That Big U so clearly fled from law enforcement the night before his arrest, only to publicly blame others for his crimes and charges, reinforces his guilt and his incompatibility with pretrial release. Defendant's surrender to law enforcement was likewise not to fight the charges and show that he has nothing to hide, but was taken with the precise goal of crafting an argument for bail before the court. However, while Big U may have made the calculated decision in consultation with his attorneys to return to LA after his relatively brief flight from his arrest on the complaint. So, Wack, at this point, they're saying that he fled. He already fled that morning. He cut his phones off and fled. However, while defendant may have made the calculated decision in consultation with his attorneys to return to LA after his relatively brief flight from his arrest on the complaint, that calculus inevitably changes today after a 43-count indictment was returned with extremely serious offenses carrying enormous potential penalties. So what they're saying here is that, hey, his actions when we just had the complaint to lock him up showed that he was at risk of flight. He didn't turn himself in. He made the videos. He cut his phones off, and he didn't turn himself in with the phones. And now you're saying after we indicted him on 43 federal counts, you want us to release him? That's their argument. Any questions on that? We have what he did from the complaint already show risk of flight. Poison the jury pool, X1, intimidation of witnesses. Now he's indicted. What do you think he's going to do? Simple argument. It says, after a 43-count indictment was returned with extremely serious offenses carrying enormous potential penalties, Big U is now, for the first time in decades, facing the very likely prospect of never leaving prison alive. Indeed, that would be a guideline sentence on the charges the government is prepared to prove by, among the testimony of witnesses and victims and electronic evidence, including intercepted phone calls and surreptitious recordings. Given the serious nature of the charges, and surreptitious means secret or done in secret, right? He's saying they had intercepted phone calls and secret recordings. Now, I think we heard somehow, somewhere that Victim 1 has some type of his own recordings on Big U. That could be what they're talking about here.
Wait, Victim 1, Dale. That's Dale, right?
That's Dale, right? Yeah.
Had all recordings on Big U.
Right.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And that's in the complaint in the paperwork, right? So given the serious nature of the charges, the strength of the evidence, and the defendant's access to vast amounts of resources and criminal support, his risk of non-appearance is more pronounced today than it has ever been. Now, here's the argument with what happened if they're arguing, this is the seriousness, if he's actually allowed. Big U is not only a risk of danger to the community, but has acted on his dangerousness time and time again. While this brief that we're reading summarizes many of his violent acts, he'd be missing others, giving defendants use of others to commit crimes for him, and his probability for taking in persons or talking on encrypted applications to avoid detection. And still, Big U crimes are still omnipresent in his recorded So basically what they're saying is, hey, we don't have every single time that he's committed violent acts about it enough on these calls that we got him for it. It's that simple. He's a danger to the community because he's talked about being a danger to the community himself. We don't have to tell you every single violent act he's done. We're going to play you his words. Furthermore, Big U's release will pose a serious risk to individuals who have assisted the government in this case, as well as witnesses and victims who have so far refused to cooperate or provide statements because of what they know. Okay. As Big U made clear in any intercepted call, as Big U made clear in an intercepted call on January 5th, 2023, being a rat, quote unquote, means you are done. Trying to intimidate and dissuade anyone from cooperating with law enforcement or otherwise reporting information about Big U before turning himself in, Big U posted an Instagram video naming his co-defendants and known opponents, instructing the public not to associate with them and claiming that if they did, this tracks with the means and methods of the enterprise described in the indictment. Open quote. Threatening or pressuring victims or witnesses of crimes committed of the Big U enterprise to avoid interaction with or to provide untruthful statements or testimony to law enforcement officers. Big U release would pose a serious safety of those specific individuals. So that's the cooperators, that's the witnesses, and that's the victims that they're saying that are going to be a danger if he's let out due to his history. And not a risk, a serious risk. Threats of physical harm to cooperating witnesses risk danger to the witnesses themselves as well as to the community more broadly. To be plain, such conduct fundamentally endangers the integrity of the judicial process. And particularly, giving defendants history of engaging in obstructive conduct, no condition of the bond could prevent and detect such conduct. Give me 1 second. They go into another case study where they describe a case like his where a guy had $1 million bond. Let's see. Okay. It says, even participation in pretrial services computer monitoring program would be insufficient to ensure that Big U will cease engaging in unauthorized or inappropriate communications in person, on undisclosed devices, or through third parties. Indeed, Big U flouted BOP rules for years. So basically thumbed his nose at the prison rules for years. Big U previously bragged on intercepted calls about paying guards and overseeing the entire drug trade on the yard when previously serving time. More recently, as overheard on an intercepted call on November 22nd, 2022, when Big U told an incarcerated individual that he was going to charge someone in the federal prison $6,000 to have a phone smuggled to him. Then on January 3rd, 2023, on an intercepted call, Big U told an incarcerated individual that he was going to purchase 6 miniature phones to send to an incarcerated individual so that he could sell them in prison for $1,000 each. Now in custody himself, Big U has asked his family to contact known victims in this case. Oh. Wack, you ready for this? Now in custody himself, Big U has asked his family to contact known. I wonder who he told to contact. If Big U cannot abide by rules in the highly restrictive setting of detention, there is no reason he should be trusted to abide by the course conditions in a less restrictive setting. The risk to numerous victims and witnesses in this case, as well as the risk to the public, is too great to give Big U that chance. In conclusion, if the court wants to know how Big U will conduct himself on pretrial release, it needs to look no further than the recordings, conduct, and threats throughout this investigation. With everything to lose, including the immense goodwill he fortunately procured from the community, Big U still told anyone who dared to ask that he was a killer. And he proved that he was. Because Big U is both a danger to the community and a risk of non-appearance should the case not go his way, this court should detain Big U pending trial. It says to grant bail. The government respectfully requests that this court stay its bail order pending appeal to the Honorable Fernando Rocha. So even if they grant him bail, the feds are asking that he stay that order pending an appeal to a higher judge. And that, in conclusion, is the 21 pages of Fed's motion, brief in support of detention for one Eugene Henley, aka Big U, aka Unc, aka Draws, aka Hannibal Muhammad, aka Anybody Killer, aka Dave Austin. That concludes paperwork today. All right, y'all, come on that mic. Let's get into it.
I said it reminds me of Puffy.
Yep, Puff Daddy.
Messing with the witnesses, having other people call the witnesses. That's a surefire way of not getting released.
Yeah, but DVS, in addition to that, though, reading the paperwork, how does the wife not catch an instruction just to charges her in the indictment to reach out to KF's mom?
You know what? They might be keeping her out long enough to get more stuff on her. Don't seem like she's using good sense. She might be doing more stuff. She might get indicted later.
And remember, they allege in a complaint that they both went on the run. So now we're seeing that more paperwork that they did go on the run.
Slow down.
Slowing down.
Slow down. Say that again, Prince. They what?
They allege in a complaint that they both went on the run.
And they're establishing that by saying they were not at the house when they raided, right?
That they left the house.
Okay. So why these dummies don't realize when Big U said, and when they raided my house, they kept bringing up Wack100 and loose cannon. How the f*** know they bringing up when y'all wasn't there?
Bingo.
These people be so slow. You wasn't at home for them to talk to you during the raid. None of y'all was there. All y'all was in the...
If you were there, you would be in custody. You obviously wasn't there. You was on the run. You cut your phones off.
Turned himself in, bit him in the head.
No. Remember, he didn't turn himself in. He was on the run. That's where it says he consulted his lawyers, and his lawyer told him to drive back to Atlanta and turn himself in.
Wonder where that nigga went.
That's a good question.
He was driving for a minute.
He had his wife with him. But remember, she had her phone on, though.
All of them was with him. His wife, his kids, everybody.
And I don't know if you keep catching it. I'm kind of catching it, but they're not really saying it. Are they saying that he's a part of some murder with the 60s indictment too? But they keep referencing he's a part of some murder with that. This is the second or third time they reference that. They're not saying like, you know what I'm saying? But they keep saying that, just like in this case, right? But they haven't really. So it could be a murder in it too. Every single crime so far, the tax fraud, the sex trafficking, the human trafficking, the wire fraud, we link up, right? Where's this phantom murder they're talking about? They keep mentioning it.
What phantom murder? What you talking about?
So you go back to the paperwork, right? They keep saying that he has the big U enterprise, right? And then he sometimes uses the role in 60s for muscle X, Y, and Z. But then they
Okay.
list what he uses the role in 60s for. It says murder, extortion. See what I'm saying?
Well, they're gonna do that because their gang analysis over the last 40, 50 years, niggas gonna say these are the things that this gang and shit, any other gang at that has been arrested for. You get what I'm saying?
I
So they're saying this gang has been arrested. People have been arrested for murder, extortion, robbery. I
got you.
mean, you name it, A to Z. I mean, shit. You know, the larger the gang, the more shit people been arrested for. You know what I'm saying? Drug distribution, this, that, nothing. So that's all that is. But I still think that they're not charging him for the murder in the feds. I still think they're leaving out to the state of Nevada.
I got you.
They did Jimmy Henchman like that. Jimmy got like 100 years on the feds, 100 years on the state.
Yeah, that Rico statue is. I'm gonna read that through and through today.
Yeah, they played a dirty game when they put the disrespect to Trump.
Well, they shut that play down. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, because whoever it was that was gonna try to run that, gonna get away from it. You get what I'm saying?
He better get away from it, better. He ain't gonna have that connection no more.
Yeah, whoever it is that was gonna try that, gonna get away from it. Right. I think if Trump let somebody else go, I think the next person he'll let go knowing Trump be Larry Hoover. Somebody like that.
Yeah, you said that before, Larry.
He'll do some shit like that.
So what you thinking, no bail? Because it seems like the way I'm reading that paperwork, it seems like the feds is going that I'm reading it. Like whatever was in that pre-trial sentencing report, whatever they recommended, they going at them. So they even said at the end, if you caught that at the end, that hey, if you do grant him bail, that we grant us this automatic appeal. He's not going home. You're gonna stay that order pending appeal.
Yeah, love, this shit finna go crazy. This shit finna go crazy.